And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to Dice Tower. Today we're taking a look at Metro X. This is the rail and write game. So the way this game works is it's in the genre of roll and writes, although this is a flip and write game, where you'll flip a card, look at the number, and you're going to fill in subway stations. You're trying to connect all the stations in your spaghetti-like subway grid, and whoever fills in them the most efficiently is the winner. Let's take a look. In this game, you're going to play one of two sides. You're going to play the Metro City, or you're going to play Tube Town. They're just different maps. They both play the same way. You have a deck of cards here, and it doesn't matter how many people are playing the game. You'll flip over the top card. Now, many of the times, the card is a number. So when you have a number, you're going to pick one of your lines here. So let's say, for example, I'll pick the red line, and you'll write a number there, so 3, and then you'll cross off 3, the next 3 lines in that subway. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get to the end of the subway, because if you do, you'll get this yellow number here worth of points. If you're the first person, you get the white number if you're the second person. So the next card here is a 5. I could put the 5 here in red, but if I do so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm not going to finish it because there's no more spots to put numbers there. However, I could put this in the orange route, because the orange route here, I start from the first empty spot. There's already 3 X's on the orange one because the orange and the red route go together. So then I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means the red route would start here next time. Now there are some problems. You must stop when you run out of the number. You can stop earlier if you want. You must also stop when you get to the end, but you must also stop when you reach the first X on the track. Now this can be problematic because I may be running a train route. For example, let's say I'm running the yellow route and I've already come through and made an X there with the red line. Let's say I finished the red line. And now the yellow line is going to go, and I do a 6 here, for example. I would go 1, and I cannot go into that spot, so I would be done. However, there are cards in the game called Skip, where you can skip over X's that are in your path. So if this was the case, I could put that 2 here and go 1, skip over this one, and put the next one here as 2. There are also transfers. When you get a transfer, you pick one line. You'll put an X here in this spot, and then you will go down to the first empty station, so it's here, and you'll see how many routes connect to that station. In this case, it's 2, blue and purple, and you'll double that amount and put that number there. That's going to score you points at the end of the game. If you can, and then there's also a free one here. I can just pick any station on the board and put an X in that spot. That's always open and free. When you draw the 6, you have to, this specific 6 shows reshuffle. You'll reshuffle the cards and keep going. When every single one of these things has a number in it, or is an X because you can't put something in it or whatever, then you're going to add up your scores. You'll get points for all the completed ones. Remember, the first person to complete it gets the yellow number. The second person to complete it or more gets the white number. You'll also get the points for your transfers that you've scored throughout the board. You're going to lose a point for each empty station that you haven't filled in, and that will give you your total at the end of the game. And you don't lose a point for every empty station, I apologize. You lose points equal to how many empty stations you have, according to this chart here. Now, if you're playing the solo game, you're just going to see how well you did according to this chart. The highest I've scored in a solo game has been in the 30s, which I feel is pretty good. It says you're an advanced level, but, you know, I would like to score higher than that. That's pretty much the game. You can play against other people or play solitaire. The components for this game are quite good. The boards are double-sided. It's pretty easy to differentiate the different lines. They also have letters on them so that you can see. And if you look really close here at them, you can see each of the lines also has a slightly different texture to it, so that it's easy to tell them apart. The markers work well. They have erasers with them, which is nice. The cards are decent quality, but are very easy to read, and they're different colors. I mean, a skip and these are pretty much the same thing, just the word skip, but also the background color helps. So there's also these, which tell you how the different 4 actions work when you draw those cards, and then the penalty table for empty stations at the end of the game. Everything fits nicely in a little insert here. It's a really nice little production. Metro X is very interesting to me because there are a lot of these roll and write, flip and write style games. This one feels different from the other ones. Now at first it's a little bit odd to wrap your mind around it because you look at the different lines and you'll say, there's no way I can finish that line when I can only fill in 2 spaces. So you have to use other methods. You have to use another line to, like I showed you, where I filled in the red, then the orange, and then another red would have finished that. And that seems like that's pretty easy. The problem is, as the game goes by, you're going to find out you can't finish all the lines. Well, maybe you can, but I have yet to see someone who's been able to pull that off. So those skips, you need to use them at the right when they show up. What's the right place to use a skip? And so this game is going to be different because those cards are going to come up in random orders. You can't even count on a card coming out like, well, definitely the one that lets me put a spot anywhere. I'm waiting for that one, because the reshuffle card may come first and then you might not see it. Ever, possibly. So that makes every game of this different, the way the deck's going to be shuffled. And you have to kind of also just work on your own board, because if you could copy somebody else, there's no real retaliation, there's no real difference. We're all using the same stuff. And in fact, because of that, Metro X is essentially a solitaire game. Oddly enough, I've played this one quite a bit solitaire, more so than I've played with other people, and I think I prefer it that way. I actually just like trying to figure out the best possible score I can get. They recommend you start with the Metro X side of the board as opposed to the other one. I found both sides different, but fairly samey. I don't know that I would say one side is harder than the other. And it's just it's an amusing pastime for me to do. I flip the cards over, write the stuff in, I'm done. Good quality board. I don't have to, laminate sheets in this one. Everything is write and erase. And so if you're looking for a cool solitaire experience, this is certainly one that I'd recommend. And you could also play it with others, because there is the whole who's going to be the first to finish a specific subway line. But other than that, like I said, mostly a solitaire game, but a very good one. There's a lot of these games out there at this point in time, and I would put this in the upper half of that group. This one feels like it stands out. Trying to make your stations work, your lines work together, where you're using one line to further another one. Sometimes you'll find a line that just has X's all throughout it, and you're like, well, I'll never get that line done because there's too many different X's that are dotting it. I'll have to stop each time. And then you'll get a skip card and say, wait a minute, I can fill in a few. You get another skip card and you're like, wait a minute, this might actually work after all, especially when you draw that 0. So there's some interesting facets. You can have I've had some pretty bad games of Metro X where I didn't do very well at them, but I've never had an unfun game of it. So certainly one I recommend, Metro X. Dice Tower Judgment approved.